So I came across an interesting bit of information from a Rob Demovsky article a couple days back, and it talks about A.J. Dillon, and here we have from Rob Demovsky, he might be a cheap option to re-sign, with the source estimating his annual salary at the lowest end of the market between $1.5 million and $3 million. Dillon missed the final 3 games, playoffs included, because of a severe stinger. So a source told Demovsky that it seems that Dillon will probably get in the $1.5 million to $3 million range. And A.J. Dillon is scheduled to become a free agent. And my prediction a couple weeks back was that the Packers would move on from A.J. Dillon. I assume, with paying Aaron Jones right now it's about a $17 million cap hit. I assume they get that down somehow in the next few weeks, most likely. And with them paying Aaron Jones that amount of money, I assumed, okay, A.J. Dillon probably not going to get a new contract. But now seeing this information, the fact that it could be as low as $1.5 million a year, I think that it could make you contemplate keeping him if you don't have to pay him that much money. And that's sort of where the debate is. And I think the question the Packers will have to ask is, do they think they can get more production out of A.J. Dillon? Or do they think they can find a rookie running back coming to this 2024 NFL draft and find someone who's going to be cheaper and is going to be just as productive as A.J. Dillon? And I think when you look at the running back market, there's no doubt it's one of the lower valued positions in the NFL, just because I think we've seen time and time again how you can find running backs in later rounds. You can find 7th round guys, 4th round guys, undrafted guys who become, successful backs. Not to say that investing in one in the first couple rounds can't work as well, but because of the ability to find running backs in later rounds who come in and produce just as much as some other guys, it sort of, I think, pushes their value down. And so with A.J. Dillon, my opinion, if he only costs $1.5 million a year, then maybe you bring him back, because as a person, as a teammate here, I think that A.J. Dillon clearly seems to be one of the players who's happiest with living in Green Bay, seems to love Wisconsin. And so when you have a guy like that who is very dedicated to the state, I think that you do factor in some of those other things. But if you're Brian Gutekunst, the GM, and you look at A.J. Dillon in his production last season, it was definitely a dip from his previous years. If you look at his first year, 2020, 5.3 yards a carry on 46 attempts. 2021, 187 attempts, 4.3 yards a carry. 2022, 185 attempts, 4.2 yards a carry. Then this past season, with Aaron Jones missing a lot of time, A.J. Dillon, 178 attempts at 3.4 yards per attempt. And those numbers were all yards per attempt. So a drop-off from 4.2 to 3.4. And I think that's why he's probably going to get somewhere in the 1.5 to $3 million range, according to this source on the low end. But I think that if you have to pay him more than $3 million a year, I still don't think it's the best idea. Just when you look at his production, and I think you can find some running backs coming into this next draft that could produce at a similar level and be cheaper, more close to maybe $1 million per year instead of 3 or 4, so you could save some money there. I think you do also have to factor in the fact that A.J. Dillon has been here with Matt LaFleur in this scheme for 4 years, and he'll clearly have more experience than any rookie coming in, but these rookie running backs can, of course, learn the scheme and learn the system as well. But one other interesting thing to note for Brian Gutekunst, he said this recently per Packers.com. I do think we would always like to have one power, bigger back on the roster for short yardage situations and playing in the weather and closing out games. So it sounds like Brian Gutekunst, Packers GM, still wants to have one of those bigger physical backs like an A.J. Dillon. I just wonder if they're going to be willing to pay A.J. Dillon himself. And so I was looking at some running backs coming into this draft to see if there's any guys who sort of fit that bigger back kind of mold. And I was scrolling through PFF's NFL draft board. It's a really nice product for looking at these draftees. And when you look at lots of these guys, PFF's first highest ranked running back is 57th among all prospects, Jonathan Brooks from Texas, but he's only 6 foot 207. You look at A.J. Dillon, he's 6 foot 247. And you have to go a good ways down to find some bigger size backs on these PFF rankings. And the first one who gets somewhat close to A.J. Dillon, but not quite, is Audric. I think it's Estime. He went to Notre Dame, 5'11", 227. He's a big physical back. He could be an option there. PFF, as I said, has him at 111. So that would be, around 4 or so. Maybe he goes earlier. And then one guy as well that I like, at least the bigger backs, is Wisconsin's Braylon Allen, 6'2", 245. So he's basically the same size, at least when it comes to weight, as A.J. Dillon, but just like 2 inches taller. And I was watching some highlights of him. I don't watch much college football, but was watching his highlights earlier today. Looks like a strong, physical, pretty speedy power back. And so if the Packers can get a guy like him in maybe rounds 3 or 4, if he's available then, maybe 2, maybe 3, who knows? I think that could be worth the investment, and it would make more sense to let A.J. Dillon go. Because I think if A.J. Dillon had played at a top-tier level in 2023, then maybe you decide to bring him back and pay him $5 million a year. But because you're already paying Aaron Jones a good amount of money, I just think it makes the most sense to move on from A.J. Dillon. But as I said, if it's $1.5 million a year, I do think that makes it a little bit tougher for the Packers on that decision, because if you have a guy who already has the experience here in the system, at that price, I think that could potentially be a viable option. So I just wanted to share that most recent news from Rob Demovsky from an article either yesterday or maybe 2 or 3 days back. A little bit of information there about sort of what is expected for A.J. Dillon to potentially get in the running back market